Hi, everybody. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about a recent upset in Ohio, which is where J.D. Vance won the Republican nomination for the Senate seat that's being vacated by Republican Senator Rob Portman. The reason why I'm going to discuss this is because it's a major change in where Ohio politics has been. Now, Rob Portman, the outgoing Republican senator from Ohio, has been in that position since 2011, and he's really seen as somebody who was very much a moderate, even if he did vote with the Trump administration many times. He's somebody who was seen as uncontroversial, somewhat scandal free, really boring in terms of how many people are paying attention to him. He didn't trend on Twitter, and he wasn't very talk show friendly. In fact, the GovTrack analysis put Rob Portman as the third most moderate Republican in 2017, being to the right of Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, but to the left of his other Republican colleagues. The American Conservative Union gave him a lifetime 79% conservative grade, which is quite low for somebody from Ohio. So this is not somebody who is ever boisterous or trying to raise attention for himself. Now, in contrast, the new Republican Senate primary, not primary nominee, but nominee for the general election, J.D. Vance, is the opposite of that. He's boisterous, he's loud, he takes very controversial positions, whether or not you agree with them. In terms of Ukraine, he said some of the things that have trended the most this primary season about what the United States should do with Ukraine. And I wonder, as somebody who's been observing the primary season so far, whether or not former President Trump endorsing J.D. Vance, and make no mistake, J.D. Vance is the nominee because of Trump's endorsement, and I think even J.D. Vance would acknowledge that, whether or not that was the right choice. Because we're coming into a season where, yes, Republicans are overwhelmingly favored to take back the House and possibly the Senate. And just in general, I think the momentum is with Republicans with how bad Biden is doing with the country, and Democrats seem to be failing to push an adequate message forward. However, even if you have all those advantages, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win a seat that's been held for several years through some of the most tumultuous and angry and angsty years in American politics. It doesn't mean you're going to win that seat if you are the opposite of the person who's been holding on to that seat for the Republican Party. And J.D. Vance and Rob Portman are polar opposites. And this is something that I don't necessarily think the Trump world, the Trump MAGA sphere wants to hear. It doesn't matter how much J.D. Vance loves Trump. It doesn't matter the fact that he thinks he's great or that he recently thinks he's great, because in the past, J.D. Vance has been quite anti-Trump. But it doesn't matter that he's a convert to the Trump ways. If he can't deliver on election day, does it matter anymore? Does it matter if Trump likes him at Mar-a-Lago? Does it matter if Trump thinks he's interesting and wants to hang out with him? All that really should matter for the Republican Party, aside from policy, is holding on to the country. And this is something we're seeing over and over again in primaries. In Pennsylvania, for example, Mehmet Oz and McCormick, very still neck and neck. It looks like Mehmet Oz will pull this out. But with the amount of energy that the Trump people, Hannity, Geraldo Rivera, everybody put into supporting Mehmet Oz, you would think it would be a blowout for him. You would think he would win by double-digit margins. But they're separated literally by a few hundred votes in a very large state. So when you have a situation where the Trump endorsement matters more to voters than their candidate's winnability, than their candidate's electability, that can put you in trouble. And it's something that as we get into the general election, people need to be aware of. Because it's one thing to be loud and boisterous in a primary like J.D. Vance was throughout the entire Ohio primary. It's one thing to say everything controversial you can to get yourself trending on CNN or Twitter or Instagram. But it's another thing for soccer moms to go vote for you. It's another thing for fathers to go vote for you. It's another thing for business owners to believe that you'll have their back if something happens in the state and they need more time or they need small business loans. And electability is increasingly on the back burner of things that the Trump campaign, the Trump orbit talks about or thinks about before offering endorsements. The Oz endorsement specifically, electability was not considered. What was considered was the fact that Oz has been a friend of Trump. He's been a friend of Sean Hannity, that he's somebody many Republicans, specifically on Fox News and the commentating circuit, like. That is what was considered. And that's unfortunate because it is a year where Republicans are favored. And it's been a long time since Republicans have been favored for anything. It's been a long time since we've had a win. Really, the last win we even had was Youngkin in Virginia winning the governor's race unexpectedly against Terry McAuliffe. So to have a year where we have the advantage and to perhaps squander it by bad endorsements and somebody especially in Ohio, being JD Vance, who is not, it's not that he's not polished, it's that he doesn't seem to understand there's a difference between winning a primary and winning a general election. JD Vance wrote a book about his upbringing. He's somebody who's been to Ivy League schools. Technically, he has pretty much all the markings of Marco Rubio on paper, but the issue is his boisterousness, his loudness, and it's something that I don't necessarily know if his campaign can overcome in time to beat Tim Ryan, who is the Democrat nominee for Senate in Ohio. And Tim Ryan is somebody who is widely appealing to blue collar voters. He's somebody that really emerged from the Trump years pretty unscathed, and Trump went after everyone he could in Ohio to assure he could win in Ohio in 2020. So if you're up against somebody who has a really deep fan base, being Tim Ryan's also young, they're both young candidates. Is it smart to be as controversial as possible? Because do you want to trend on Twitter? Do you want to be famous on Instagram? Do you want Jake Tapper to be talking about you on CNN? Or do you want to be a sitting US Senator? Hopefully, JD Vance wants to be a sitting US Senator. And this is not just an effort to boost his name brand recognition, but for some half-baked effort to run for president either this cycle or next if Trump doesn't run. Thank you, everybody.